The elusive suspect outsmarting the detectives at every turn. One ordinary evening in 2011, a local 7-Eleven became the center of attention as alarm bells echoed through the air. Reports flooded into the local police department detailing an armed robbery. However, upon reaching the scene, law enforcement discovered an empty space devoid of any suspects. Their search expanded and, in the process, they heard commotion emanating from a nearby house. With no other leads to follow, they swiftly stormed into the residence only to find a familiar face, a known heroin addict named Jeff Pearson, seated inside holding a gun. Based on the circumstantial evidence alone, the police arrested Jeff and proceeded to interrogate him. Little did they know, Jeff Pearson, struggling through the agonizing throes of heroin withdrawals, would go down in history as one of the rare individuals who outwitted the authorities at their own game. This account unveils the extraordinary tale of a suspect who bested the cops. The subsequent 24 hours of this captivating saga were captured by police cameras within the confines of the interview room. However, in a twist of events, the footage was ultimately uploaded to the suspect's personal YouTube channel on September 25, 2011. This occurrence serves as an initial indication of what sets Jeff apart, a figure revered as a cult hero and a legendary figure within the realm of interrogations. Jeff spent almost an entire day in police custody, but the recorded footage of the 3 interrogation sessions lasted only 15 minutes. In the state of Georgia, the usual minimum sentence for robbery and arrest is about 10 years in prison, with a maximum of life without parole. Surprisingly, Jeff managed to avoid serving any time behind bars. Instead of facing decades of imprisonment, he spent a day receiving drinks and candy while demonstrating expert behavior during his time in police custody. The available footage provides a detailed insight into the tactics used by law enforcement and how to skillfully navigate them. The footage begins with Jeff Hancock dressed in prison scrubs in a small windowless room. It's evident that he has been processed and spent time in a cell while the police gathered evidence and prepared to question him. Right from the start, Jeff asks if he's under arrest and on what grounds. This demonstrates his thorough preparation for such situations. Based on the response, there are 2 options. If he's not being arrested or detained, he can assert that he is not obligated to stay or answer questions, thereby having the right to leave the interrogation. If he is being arrested, he can immediately request a lawyer and remain silent until one is provided. These choices offer the best chance to halt the police's progress and enable the creation of a strong defense strategy. Interestingly, when being arrested in the United States, officers are legally required to remind individuals of these rights. Listen closely to the Miranda warning read by the detective to Jeff. These 3 points carry immense significance but are often overlooked by the average person in their initial panic of being arrested. Furthermore, due to the frequent portrayal of these lines in police shows and movies, most individuals tend to disregard their importance and fail to realize that they are receiving valuable information to ensure their safety and protection while in police custody. The detective conveniently omitted the fact that if an individual in custody requests legal representation, they are legally entitled to cease all further questioning. They possess an absolute and indisputable right to decline to answer any inquiries until provided with a lawyer. Additionally, the detective concludes her statement with a disdainful comment regarding Jeff's past, deliberately aiming to subliminally reinforce his status as a previously convicted offender. Jeff has been explicitly informed about his right to remain silent, and he has chosen to exercise that right at this very moment. Demonstrating a relaxed posture, the leading detective leans back into his chair, attempting to convey an air of nonchalance towards Jeff's silence and a willingness to remain there for as long as necessary. However, such body language often signifies underlying unease or tension. It is evident that the detective is aware that they are about to face a challenging few hours ahead. In terms of asserting dominance, Jeff has effectively invalidated all the efforts made by the police by discarding them in the metaphorical garbage can. During the initial phase of questioning, Jeff demonstrated appropriate conduct considering his current situation. He is aware that the authorities lack any incriminating evidence against him. Otherwise, they wouldn't have engaged in conversation with him in the first place. Consequently, he remains silent and returns to his cell. However, after 2 hours, he is brought back to the same room for the second round of interrogation. Jeff made a simple request for a can of soda before re-entering the interrogation room. Nonetheless, he promptly brings up the symptoms of withdrawal he may already be experiencing. However, methadone, the medication he initially inquired about, can significantly alleviate the impact of withdrawal, including the intense cravings he has likely endured throughout his time in police custody. Jeff clearly wishes to steer away from personal discussions and redirect the focus to the main issue. From his perspective, he has been wrongfully arrested and desires a swift resolution to regain his freedom. It is quite amusing to observe the irony of this police officer claiming that he isn't trying to incriminate Jeff while simultaneously having him restrained in an interrogation room, subjecting him to questioning. What strikes me as remarkable is how flawlessly Jeff presents his arguments, to the point that it almost appears premeditated. It's truly an extraordinary demonstration of his personal legal defense skills, especially considering that Jeff is likely experiencing the initial stages of withdrawal. I'd also like to emphasize Jeff's point regarding the police's objective of coercing a confession out of him. One of the primary techniques employed in such interrogations is the Reed technique, which originated in the 1960s through the collaboration of a former law enforcement officer and psychologist who successfully obtained a confession from a man accused of murdering his own wife. This 9-step strategy begins with a courteous talk about the suspect's claimed involvement in the crime and uses body language and interrogation methods to indicate guilt. The suspect agrees with 2 assertions, one of which is significantly more acceptable. Any statement suggests guilt and is a confession. This method corners the suspect and coerces innocent people to confess. The strategy failed because the accused was innocent and had been tricked into confessing. Psychological manipulation is astounding. Jeff has requested legal representation again and is not answering. We're barely halfway through examining the film, and Jeff's ability to defend himself and discredit the police officer increases as the questioning continues. The detective becomes desperate now. As time runs short, the investigator resorts to lying about evidence that might convict Jeff. This strategy may use Jeff's fear to get him to reveal more. However, the investigator uses weak rhetoric, saying Jeff won't get any help because he hasn't cooperated. The investigator feverishly tries to bargain with Jeff, offering to speak well of him to his parole officer if he cooperates. Jeff realizes that a pledge is worthless while facing 20 years in prison. This emphasizes the police's lack of evidence against Jeff and shows their understanding of the investigation's limited time. Despite Jeff's desire for legal counsel, the cops continue to interrogate him even though they've told him his rights 3 times. Jeff is watching the clock, so they know they must get information from him quickly. Jeff denies everything the cops say for the next 4 minutes. They mention the pistol found in his possession, keep trying to negotiate, and even try to scare him by threatening to send him back to prison without his medicines. Jeff stays calm throughout. He knows he can win. Over the past few hours, the authorities have interrogated a plainly suffering man, depriving him of legally authorized medication that may help him cope. They keep asking him about a crime without proof. Jeff nonchalantly requests beverages and chocolate bars throughout the experience. Jeff exercises his rights flawlessly, since a mistake of the tongue might have grave repercussions. After a 12-hour ordeal, official records release him, enabling him to continue his journey. According to reports, this pivotal moment marked a turning point in Jeff's life. He successfully overcame his addiction to heroin and now dedicates his time to uploading content on the same YouTube channel where the footage from the aforementioned video was shared. Jeff utilizes his platform to create music and generously provides valuable advice on evading law enforcement's deceptive tactics. Jeff Pearson, the individual who outwitted the police in their own game, emerged as a symbol of resilience against an unjust system. His story serves as a potent reminder that possessing knowledge of one's rights, maintaining composure, and asserting those rights can profoundly impact the outcome of a police investigation. Jeff's ability to outsmart law enforcement personnel exemplifies the power of understanding and fortitude in the face of adversity. His enduring legacy stands as a testament to the significance of comprehending the law and safeguarding one's own rights.